extensive pre-draft process going through workouts. How pleased are you with the kind of evaluation process the last month as you get ready for the draft next week?
Well, you can hear the balls bouncing in the background. This is probably number 18 or 19 of workouts that we've had. Probably brought in close to 100 players by now. At 12, 36, and 52, you really have to bring in a lot of players because you kind of cover everybody. If you're drafting 12, then there's probably 20 or 25 players you bring in. If you're drafting 36, then maybe there's 40 or 50. But when you're drafting 12, 36, and 52, it's a lot. You cover a lot of ground. So we've brought in a lot. We've got our scouts in town right now. They came in Wednesday night, and we're preparing for the draft next Thursday.
Where do you think this draft is positionally strong and weak?
Well, obviously there's a lot of talk about, it'd be great if you had one of the top 3 picks, and I think there's something to be said for that. You always wish your pick was higher than it really is. We're at 12. I wish it was at 1, and if it's not 1, I wish it was 11 or 10 or 9. So, having said that, I think there are probably 3 players that everybody talks about that are going to go 1, 2, 3. But the next 10 or so, I think you'll be able to get a good player. I really do. It always seems to be that no matter what people think about the draft, when you actually get into the draft, you start to look at players. And they may say it's a weak draft at first, a month or month and a half ago, but it always turns out to be a pretty good draft. And I always feel you can get a player no matter where you're drafting.
Do you think there's any particular position that is stronger than others?
Well, like I said, I'd love to have the number 1 pick.
I'd love to have position.
Oh, you mean position on the court? Yeah. I think after 3 or maybe 4 point guards, there's not a whole lot to choose from. I think there are a lot of wings. And in today's NBA game, there's not a great concentration on big men. The game has changed just a little bit, but I think there are a couple of big men that can play in the way the game is played today. But I think there are a lot of wings out there, and I think that would be the position where it's most strong right now.
Mitch, you represented the U.S. at the 76 Olympic Games and stuff, and Kemba now has a chance to play on the U.S. national team. What are your thoughts on that? And also, how did your play in the international play affect you when you were transitioning to the Bullets?
Well, I've had a varied career in my success on the basketball court. I've been on, fortunately, NBA championship teams, but my career was marred with a lot of injury, so I had various levels of success. I did play on 2 NBA teams that won championships, and when you start to look at highlights of a career, they're close to the top, but the very top is the Olympic championship. I'm surprised you remember that. It's been a long, long time. It's been in 1976. And if they were, I don't think you look that old, to be honest with you. But if I had to pick one thing, clearly it would be the Olympic championship. It's just a special. And back then, the 72 team lost to the Russians on that controversial play. And the next 4 years were spent talking about how we're going to get back and win the championship back from the Soviet Union. So it was a little bit of a different time, and it was all amateurs then. There were no pro players, although I thought we played against pro players. The guys we played against were in their 30s, and we were all 19, 20, and 21. So that's number 1. And the fact that Kemba is going to play, for a national team, that pride of wearing the uniform, USA, and playing the national anthem and the flag waving, there's nothing better.
He joins a select club with you and Michael and Dwayne Bacon, who Hornets who played for the USA then.
Well, I'm not sure I'm in the club, or any of us are in the club with Michael. Okay, I think he won 2 gold medals, but yeah, international competition. If you get the chance as a youngster or a college player, or now with pros being allowed to play, you should do it.
Do you think
think there'll be a lot of movement in this draft? Teams trying to trade up or down? Just movement in this draft.
Well, yeah, we're talking to a lot of teams. We'd like to move up. Historically, if you look at what it costs, to move up, 4 slots or 2 slots or 5 slots, go back and look at it. A lot of times it's an expensive price, to move up. So we'd like to look to move up. If we don't, we think we'll have a group of players that we could draft at 12 that we'd be happy with. I don't anticipate us trying to move back, but I think that's certainly possible.
Mitch, how much or little do you think need would factor into your call on who you would take at 12?
What would factor?
How much or little do you think your needs would factor into the decision with the first pick?
Well, we're not exactly sure what our needs are at this time. It's probably a great leading question for somebody, because we have a couple of free agents, that we're not going to know a whole lot about until the free agent period begins. So it's hard to say what our needs are. I'd like to, be in a position to pick the best available player. If we identify that player, and in our minds, he's clearly the best player. Sometimes if 2 players are of similar talent, then maybe you go by need, by position. But I'm hopeful that, when it comes time to draft, it'll be a clear-cut decision and we just take the best player.
You kind of mentioned it, but how would you do in the draft? How would that affect what you do in free agency in a couple of weeks? How will you affect each other, so to speak?
How what?
How do you affect each other? How do you affect each other?
Well, the draft, is going to be at least 8 days prior to free agency. And, I'm not sure they're going to be correlated. Certainly we're going to think about the what-ifs. What if we don't sign this player back? What if we don't sign that player back? But once again, I think we'll be in a position, hopefully, just to take the best player.
Mitch, when you make Kemba's comments yesterday that he would be willing to take less to stay and be a part of this franchise going forward if he took less of the Supermax?
Well, I think it's consistent, with his position all along, which is what my understanding is he'd love to be back here in Charlotte. He does. I don't know if his representative approved those comments. To be honest with you, I guess we'll find out. To some degree, or to a great degree, we are prohibited, by the NBA from discussing, in great detail this whole issue. Suffice to say that, and we've been consistent, is we'd love to see Kemba finish his career in a Hornet uniform. Having said that, there are other teams out there. He's gone through a contract, where he's earned the right to be a free agent. And because of existing rules, we really weren't able to address an extension. So he's going to be a free agent. Along with that becomes a lot of risk. We've seen it in the last couple of days, unfortunately, the risk that players take when they play out their contracts. So he played it out, understandably so, and he's healthy and he's going to have a lot of options. So we're hopeful, once again, that he ends his career in a Hornet uniform.
Have you decided whether you're going to make a qualifying offer to Kaminsky?
Have not decided yet, no.
Do you feel that in some regards the moves that you would like to make are kind of prohibited because of the fact that there are so many big numbers that are on the books? I mean, it seems like you'd like to maybe shake things up, but you've got to have dance partners in order to do that.
Well, in this business, unless you're competing for championships, and even at some point in time, even if you're competing with championships, everything kind of comes to an end. Because, when you win, the players are normally good players, so when their contracts expire, they sign big contracts, and it gets to a point where, even championship teams, don't have much flexibility. So yeah, we'd love to have, more financial flexibility. We're not a championship team right now. We hope to get to the point where we are. But, that's the way it is. And if we could figure out a way to improve the team and create some flexibility, that would be great.
That trade exception you got from the Dwight Howard trade, you think you'll use that before it expires this offseason?
Well, we have until, I'm not sure the exact date, it's sometime in the beginning of July. We don't have to make that decision now. You have a full year to use it. A lot of it depends. If we're, above the tax threshold, I don't see us, unless it's an unusual type of an opportunity, using that exception. But they're valuable, and it's nice to have that, in your arsenal.
What can you do with that exception?
You can use it to take a player in a trade. You cannot use it to sign a player.
How likely or unlikely do you think it is that both the second-round picks would end up being on the roster next season?
I hope it's likely. I don't see any reason why the number 36 pick, couldn't make our team. And there are scenarios where number 52 would make our team. Now, we don't know who 52 is. I mean, you're talking about a group of over 60 to 70 players that you would consider, maybe even more than that. We have a better feel for 36, and I would think, unless there were some players overseas that really dropped, and then we selected them at 36 and they wanted to stay overseas, I don't really anticipate that. I would think that we'd use that and that player would be on our roster next year.